Hi, Chef T with the Chef's Academy. We're talking practical cuts. Yes, the Julienne, the Batonette, the Brunoise, the fine Brunoise, the fine Julienne, all that stuff. We're going to start out with some potatoes. I've got a couple cleaned. Got the peeler. Please do not use your knife to peel or on the back of the knife. Use the proper tools for the proper job. Now, we have you guys do these very specific cuts. It's more for eye-hand coordination, so I don't want you to think that every cut when you get out in the real world is so exact and precise, because we would drive ourselves absolutely crazy if that was the case. Sometimes, I'm not saying these aren't used anymore, but the finer the cut, the finer the restaurant. So Applebee's, I don't think, knows one thing about these styles of cuts. All right, so potatoes pretty cleaned. What I want to do first is square up the potato just a little bit. I'll do the Batonette first. Batonette is 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch by 2 to 2.5 inches. And again, if you're a chef or some book says a different size, it'll probably be in the length, but the 1/4 by 1/4 is going to be pretty standard. So, and this isn't a perfect rectangle potato, which is fine. I'm working directly over the potato. If I'm over here, if I'm lounging, leaning back, have the foot on the table, it's not going to come out right. So, the first cut, I want to make sure my knife is straight up and down. Make the slice, discard. This next cut is going to be the most important cut, because if this cut is off, then there's no way my little Batonette sticks will come out correct. So I've got to come up away from the potato 1/4 inch on the top and the bottom. If I'm not, it's not going to turn out. So I look, I'm about 1/4 inch, I make a slice. Now this is the plank. I want to make sure this end and this end are the same, and they're looking pretty good. I want to, again, square it up a little bit. Square up the ends to make sure that they're all going to be the same size. So now I'm going to come over another 1/4 inch. Make sure on top and bottom of the potato is 1/4 inch. So I look, I check it out. One end is really pretty close. The other end needs a little bit of work. But I want to make sure I check each cut, because if I cut through the whole potato, they could all be wrong. So again, I want to make sure I'm 1/4 inch here, 1/4 inch here. Give it a slice. Check it out. I want them to be perfect squares on both sides. That's pretty close. Now I will say, once you're used to cutting these and you have to cut those for a dish, you probably won't necessarily need to check every single one. All right, the Batonette. Next, we're going to do the Julienne, which is half the size of the Batonette. So we're looking at 1/8 by 1/8 by about 2 inches. So I should be about 90 degrees on that cut, because I took care to cut that last Batonette. So now I need to come over 1/8 on the top and 1/8 on the bottom. If you guys are carpenters, that's where you would take out your red chalk line, snap it, and slice through. We don't have that. All right, so this is half the size of the Batonette. I'm lined up. I'm going to give a slice. I'm going to check it out. Pretty close, not too bad. I'm going to cut her down to 2 inches. And I will say, if you're not sure what 2 inches looks like, you better check it out, because it's going to be on your practical. Get out a ruler. Now I'm going to come over 1/8. Check out both sides. They should be uniform. This one's a little bit off, not too bad. But I have plenty of potato to make sure I get it right. the key is every cut you're going to change it up to make it perfect. And this one looks pretty darn close. So again, I'm 1/8 on the top and the bottom, making my cuts. When you're doing your practical, I know your chef is going to tell you to keep these potatoes in some water. We don't want those to oxidize. So you can see the difference. The Batonette, if you can see that, is almost, and I'm saying these cuts, exactly half of the Batonette. Julienne is half of the Batonette. All right, now small dice. That's going to come straight from the Batonette. I'm going to get my best side. The smaller the cut, the easier it is to see the flaws. Now, this was a 1/4 inch. I'm going to need to come over another 1/4 inch. The small dice is 1/4 by 1/4 by 1/4, like little dice you take on the back alley. I've seen some small dice that may end up in a little squabble in the back alley. Some of you know what I'm talking about. All right, so we've got some small dice there. And again, the small dice comes from the Batonette. Now we have the Brunoise. The Brunoise is going to come from the Julienne. We're going to do the exact same thing. We're dealing with 1/8 of an inch here, 1/8 by 1/8 by 2 inches. This, the Brunoise is 1/8 by 1/8 by 1/8. So those are super small dice. And if it doesn't look like it's coming out correct, maybe cut it deeper. If that doesn't work, cut it more shallow. It's turned out pretty good. And again, if you're doing a bunch of these, you can really just start rocketing those off. I know it may be a little bit hard to see the white on white. My apologies. Now we're going to go on to the fine Julienne. The fine Julienne is a 1/16 by a 1/16 by, by 2 inches. The fine Brunoise is 1/16 by 1/16 by 1/16. Once I'm starting to work with the potato, it's going to be taller on a certain side. It's going to be easier if I'm working lower to the cutting board. The more the distance you have to go to cut, the higher your inaccuracy rate. So I'm just going to flip the potato over. I'm going to start. The first cut is going to be my square off cut. I want to make sure that this part of the potato is 90 degrees. I can see that it's a little off, so I'm going to cut it again. One more time. There we go. So now this one's going to be a super small cut. 1/16 is there's not much space. Yep. All right, so what we see is what not to do. I'm just going to discard that. That cut made me think that my last cut wasn't as straight as I wanted it to be. So I've got to go straight up and down with my knife. Give it a slice, check it out, and we're looking pretty good. I would say almost a little bit fat. So if you can see that, yeah, we are smaller. I'm going to go super thin. There we go. A little bit more like this. Trim her up to 2 inches. And hopefully you'll be able to see this when I pick it up, how small this is. A 1/16 by a 1/16 by 2 inches. It's pretty dinky. And again, back when you thought that Julienne was small, the fine Julienne is half the size. Now you may be saying, what am I going to use this cut for? These super fine cuts are typically going to be for a garnish. If you think you're going to fry these off for French fries, you're going to have to charge $300 for a basket of French fries. So after I rip off a couple of those, here I can make my fine Brunoise. Just like the small dice, just like the Julienne, or I'm sorry, the Brunoise, the fine Brunoise is going to come from the fine Julienne, and this is going to be probably pretty hard to see on camera. I'll put it on my knife so you can see if you can get those bad boys. There's 6 of them on there. So those are minute. I believe that's all of your practical cuts. If not, I'm sure it'll be somewhere else down the road on a video. You can check it out. Thanks a lot.